Hello everyone and welcome to Galaxy 89 Cars. Now today I'm going to be taking you on a driven real-world review of the brand new 2019 Lexus ES. This car has actually been loaned to me from Lexus Guildford. I've worked with them quite a few times if you've watched my other Lexus content. This car is their demo, I believe, and probably for sale. If you've got any more information regarding this specific car, or if you're in the area of Guildford, please make sure you go in and check them out as they have all the latest information and of course the physical cars themselves. Now in this video, if you followed my other kind of real world videos, what I'll try to do is, first of all, there are two main sections. The first is that I'll take you around setting up the car in a real world capacity, as if you were, from a sort of point of view perspective, if you were going to take the car out for a drive yourself, basically to show you in a very real world way how user friendly the vehicle is, and also just the kind of layout of instruments, the change of the interior. The second portion of the video will be me driving the car, reflecting on my experiences with it over the last 48 hours, as well as talking about more technical information. So without further ado, let me get started with some setup information. Now, before I say anything else, of course there is a new cockpit in this car, this being the 7th generation. The previous generation, the 6th generation, which didn't really come to the UK, had a very blocky section here, but I'll focus on that in a bit more detail in a minute. What we can do is go down to the start button here to press the brake and start this, and then the two dual screens come on. Of course, both totally new, and I'll go through those in a bit. Double click that to get rid of that. In terms of setting up driving position, the seats are electrically adjustable with all of the controls down here, very easy to get hold of. You can go up or down with the seats and recline back and forth, all of that different stuff. In terms of setting the mirrors up, that's a very easy setup as well. Left, right, you just click that, and then you use the directional controls here so we can look at the mirrors and we can see them moving. I hope. There we go. So that's that. We also have, you can extend them and then fold them as well if you're going to park the car. The steering wheel, let me take the seat back, I put it too forward now, is electrically adjustable as well with the controls around here. It's once again very easy, can be extended out, up and down. So once the seat, the mirrors and the steering wheel are adjusted, and of course the auto dimming mirror up here, which we can see actually gives a fairly good amount of visibility despite it being a bit fogged up and wet on the exterior. We can kind of move to the main infotainment screens and the instrument cluster. Now this is kind of reminiscent of other screens in the Lexus lineup, with a screen to the left and then a central screen that provides charge, eco, power information, and then engine temperature and fuel level to the right. Now on this screen, I'll go into detail in this in the in-depth video, which you should check out. Most importantly, it gives information for the MPG. Now this has a new powertrain, which I'll talk about a little bit later, but the entire point of this car really, and all of Lexus lines, is to provide a more kind of economical, efficient alternative to other straight petrol or diesel alternatives. Now the spec sheet on this car says that it has a combined MPG of around 60. My real-world driving experience over the last 48 hours has shown, if we can see that, just under 48 MPG. Now a lot of that has been done on the motorway. I've done some kind of intra-town driving as well, between smaller towns, some kind of start-stop stuff. But it's still not too bad. Of course, this has two main modes, well it says three, Eco, Normal and Sport. And as far as I've been aware, the screen only really changes in Sport. Now to do this, it's exactly the same on the LS and on the LC500. Really, digressing quickly, this should be seen, in my opinion, as a smaller, miniature, junior LS, especially with the styling cues that I'll talk about in a second. So we've got this up here, and this needs to be scrolled up to go into sport mode, where you can see the screen changing. I've spoken a little bit about Lexus sport modes in other cars. This one I have a slightly different opinion of, but once again I'll talk about that a little bit later in the video. We get a nice kind of red aesthetic that's kind of reminiscent of what you've seen in the LFA. Once again, to go back down to mode, we just turn it back down and it goes back into comfort mode, or eco. There's a new larger screen. I'm hoping that in the other models, like the highest level in the UK that we're going to get is the Takumi. I'm hoping in the Takumi and maybe even the F Sport, the screen is actually going to extend out further, because it's still rather small and they've got a lot of this kind of open area at the sides here. I'm sure that's probably just to kind of offset the fact that the clock is integrated into this whole kind of screen area. Nonetheless, it's still a much better screen than before. It's got Lexus' brand new infotainment system. Once again, it's on the RC models, all of the new models on the LS, etc. This new system below is a huge improvement. Those of you familiar with Lexus of the past will know that this was previously a very blocky area, but it's been totally stripped out and minimalized, which I absolutely love. So instead of all that blockiness, basically, if you remember my LS video, or if you've seen LS videos of the past, you'll kind of recognize this area, because it's very, very similar to that found in the LS. So we basically just have dual zone controls on either side. There we go. So it's on high at the moment. So to adjust the temperature, you either hold it down or you can do it step, and then we can exactly the same here as well. Then we've got fan speed, strength, and decrease then off entirely. Front demist, front and rear demist, and then just track, radio, media information. Then we've got a two-level scroller here. So one of them, so this part that scrolls is to tune the radio essentially, and then this is the volume, but you can tap it in to turn the radio off, or tap it back in to turn it on again. Of course, you've already seen the power control there, and there are also some cruise control buttons hiding down there. Below this we've got the CD player, and then some little storage areas, cup holder, USB, aux, etc. The touchpad, the infamous Lexus touchpad, and this interesting kind of dual level cup holder. So if you've got a water bottle or a coffee cup, you can cater for both. You just press that down and the height changes on it, which is pretty cool. Anyway, what I think I'll do now is start my driving video, talk about the technical specs and my reflections over the last 40 hours. This latest 7th generation ES is one of the first we've seen in the UK. It's been very popular overseas, but it hasn't really been integrated here before. It comes in around the kind of model line as the GS, and like I said before, it should really be looked at, in my opinion at least, having driven both now, as kind of a junior LS. So being a Lexus, this new car is of course a hybrid. The combustion petrol element is a front-mounted 2.5 litre 4-cylinder engine. The electric system comes in 3 components. You have a generator that's fed energy from the engine and also from regenerative braking. You have the motor itself and the battery to store electricity. Now the front motors are joined to the front wheels and that's where they get the regenerative braking from, and also where they apply their power. The total system output for this car is 215 brake horsepower. Now all of this comes together to provide a 0 to 62 mile per hour or 100 kilometer per hour time of 8.9 seconds. Now you have to take into consideration as well that depending on specification, like I said in the earlier portion of the video, there are 3 model types. The weight of the vehicle is dependent on spec, and it's going to be between, I think, 1640 and 1700 kilograms, or just over 1700 kilograms. So it's, fairly heavy car, and it's just under 5 meters long at about 4,970 millimeters. So the big question really, that with a hybrid system that only produces 215 horsepower and a car that's close to 2 tons and close to 5 meters, does it feel underpowered? Now I have to say it really depends on which drive mode you're in. In the kind of normal comfort or eco mode, you have to kind of modulate the throttle quite a lot. Now with every Lexus I've driven, it's provided the same kind of experience. It's been smooth, kind of progressive, you kind of accelerate quite slowly, and that's quite sort of the nature of the car in a way. In this, what I've noticed is you can kind of get off okay, but then if you want to kind of just keep up really with other things that are going on, in comfort and eco mode, you really have to sort of put your foot down quite a lot to be able to kind of make any movement. And then when you do put your foot down, you really do hear the engine start to fire off. Maybe it's more noticeable in this because it's a hybrid, and really in eco and comfort, just kind of doing the sort of daily driving that I'm doing at the moment, you're really just going to be running from the electric system. So it's quite quiet. So maybe That's why it's more noticeable when you do hear the engine fire up. However, you can put the car into sport mode. Now in sport, you notice quite a significant difference than in the Eco or Comfort. The throttle response is quite a lot sharper. It's not as kind of subdued or relaxed as it is in the standard modes. And acceleration is a lot better. You know, as you depress the pedal, you feel that it's more connected to the engine. Whereas in Comfort and Eco, as you depress the pedal, you don't feel like there's a huge amount of reactivity. It kind of reacts quite in a sort of relaxed way, which offers in some ways quite a sort of a soft, sort of quiet driving experience, you know, which can suit the nature and character of a Lexus and you know, a luxury saloon. But I feel there are also some times when you kind of want a little bit more responsiveness, and I think that sport mode definitely delivers it in this car. Whether it suits the nature of the car, in this I actually feel it probably does, because it doesn't have the 3.5 litre V6 hybrid that some other models do, like the LC and the RX, for example. I feel that it might feel a little bit underpowered if you're going on an A road or an M road or something like that. And so sport mode actually kind of does make a difference in this car, which is quite good. As I said in the previous part of the video, I'm on around 48 mpg, and that's after driving it for 2 days in sort of a variety of different circumstances, mainly this kind of smaller roads, but I've also done a bit of driving on the motorway, which I'll get to now. Last night I took the car up to central London. I like to do that when I have these cars because you get to test the car in a very wide variety of settings. You get to test this kind of roads, motorways, car parks, small roads, stop-start driving, city driving, all of that different stuff. It's a really good test for them. As always, it provided a very soft, kind of relaxing drive. The steering is very smooth, and because it's padded in a nice leather, it's very nice to hold. As with every other Lexus I've tested, the mirrors all provide very good visibility and they're very easily to maneuver. You just put your hand down here and you can do it quite quickly while you're driving if you need to. The car has parking sensors at the front and rear, so if anything gets too close to you, or if you feel like you're getting too close to objects when you're sort of trying to maneuver around smaller roads, then you kind of know where you are. It's got different levels, so you know how close you're getting to different things. It's kind of closer, and the way it turns from yellow to red. Now, it also has a reversing camera, which is pretty useful, which you can change through the different screens and the different sort of park assist or park pilot menus that kind of help you park around. I actually drove into the underground car park in central London, and I picked that one actually especially because it's very easy to drive into. Once again, all of the controls I've just mentioned, all of the assistance, parking assistance components helped a lot in the car park. When you're first driving in and when you're driving out, it's quite tight. So all of the parking sensors were pretty good, and also you do actually have pretty good visibility as well. I suppose going on to that, what I can surmise from this, you know, like I said before, almost 5 meters long. It's quite a large car. It doesn't feel big at all. It really doesn't. So I suppose that's one positive of the engine. It's reflected. Its size isn't reflected by its engine. So for example, it doesn't feel like the engine's really having to like drag it along. It doesn't feel like that at all. And also the kind of maneuverability of the car is very good. It doesn't feel like a 5 meter long car. Like there are some cars that are quite large. You feel quite sort of heavy footed, and that they are sort of difficult to maneuver around. But because of this extremely soft power steering, you don't feel like that at all in this car. Do I have any criticisms? The first is probably a bit of a strange one for those of you who are familiar with my previous Lexus videos. I usually am totally in love with the seats in these cars. I think they're brilliant. They're extremely comfortable, so soft, also add a nice level of support. But I have actually had some lumbar pain driving this car. Felt a little bit uncomfortable. I don't know why that is, because the seats do feel comfortable when you first get into them. Maybe it's because there's a slightly kind of hard ride as well. The ride isn't incredibly hard, but it's just noticeably sort of firm, I suppose is a better word to use. But yeah, I have had some lumbar pain. Maybe they are different seats, maybe I haven't got them adjusted quite right. Maybe if I adjusted them differently I wouldn't have this, but in this I have had a little bit. The screen could probably be a little bit bigger, and they really, I think, need to improve their UI. or their UX, their user interface a little bit. More than anything, the sat nav. I would just prefer a more high def screen. I'm getting used to the trackpad now, but the sat nav screen is probably the only criticism I have of that, really. I don't know what the Mark Levinson sound system in this car is going to sound like in terms of the acoustics of the actual vehicle. Of course, I've heard it in different models, but I've never heard it in this. And the vehicle acoustics make the way that it's shaped, the different holes that the car has, makes the sound system sound quite a lot different. So I would have to hear that. The Pioneer, the 10-speaker Pioneer system in this is pretty good. It's not bad at all. You get like I said, you get a very crisp audio sound. You do obviously notice that it's a surround sound experience, and there's no interference with the signal strength or anything like that from the DAB digital radio. So that's very good. Space in the rear is very good. I was very impressed with the boot. It's significantly larger than I anticipated. For all the full measurements of this, all of the technical data, all the specific information will be in my in-depth video. So make sure you check that out if you're interested in this car. This car has the pretty much standard Lexus CVT, or electronic constant velocity transmission, that we've seen in other vehicles. Generally speaking, it's very smooth. I haven't noticed any sort of gear changes or transitions whatsoever, apart from if you put it in sport mode and you put your foot down a bit, it does knock down a gear and then kind of rev up a bit more. In terms of manual switching mode, there are two very nice paddles behind the wheel. All we have to do is, as always, press down. That's D3, D2, and you can really hear the engine sort of revving away there. So even as I just showed you, changing through in manual mode, the gear change is very quick, sort of almost unnoticeable. You can hear the engine rev up a bit, but in terms of the body movement, there's no joltiness or jerkiness whatsoever. It's all very smooth. In all honesty, I didn't actually feel any real responsiveness from the throttle as I was cycling down through the gears. So I don't really know why you'd use it. Probably makes a bigger difference in sport mode. But other than that, I don't think I have anything else to say on the brand new Lexus ES. Thank you again to Lexus Guildford for letting me test the car out. Please make sure you go and check them out if you're interested in this car and you're in the area. Please subscribe for the latest content, and until next time, thanks for watching.